Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. We in this thing around 4:30, going live. Kind of an odd time 4:30 is, I know it's the end of a work day. Typically, if you work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, it's right before rush hour if you get, getting out into the traffic, or you're picking up the kids from school and you're getting ready to get home, get that homework knocked out, and get some dinner on the table. Either way, man, whoever jumps in here, man, I appreciate you. So whether you're listening right now live or you connect with us when we uh, finish everything up and we're in the recording. Either way, man, you're appreciated. Do me a quick favor. Whenever you're listening to it, please hit the like button. If you never, checked us out before, and you like the content, I ask you to hit subscribe. That is the currency for being in here with us today. So, man, got three major subjects, man, we're going to deal with concerning the Baltimore Ravens. But let me start with the NFL draft. Right now, man, it is mock draft season. You see mock drafts come out basically every other day. Some people put them out on Mondays, some people put them out on Sundays to get the jump start on the week. Nevertheless, I did one mock draft, and I just think that I'm going to be better served doing it a little bit different because you can only do so many mock drafts before you end up picking the same players, and then it becomes less entertaining, right? And so, what I'm going to do, man, is I'm going to partner with you guys, and we're going to go 1 week at a time, one round at a time, and we're going to do a collective 4 round mock draft. When this thing concludes, we will actually be on draft week, which will be the fifth week. And so, what we'll do that week is we will put all our draftees together and we will have a complete Baltimore Ravens mock draft. And so, the reason why we're only doing a 4 round mock draft, I'm one of those people that once you get into the fifth round, it's kind of a crapshoot of sorts, right? Round one, you can typically get a feel for who's going to fall your way after the first several picks began to unfold. You can kind of see if it's going to be an offensive lineman laden draft, a draft that's heavy with wide receivers, or a draft that's heavy with edge rushers, or whatever the situation may be. And so I believe personally that we could absolutely, um, you know, get some things right. Now, personally, when it comes to the draft, specifically concerning the Baltimore Ravens, I don't think that the Ravens should stay at 27 and pick. I'll explain why here in a second. I think the Baltimore Ravens either need to package some picks together and move up and grab somebody that is high on their draft board, or trade back. Personally, if we do the work we need to do in free agency, and I know that the store shelves of free agency is very, very thin now. A lot of work was done in the pre-tampering period. I know that's not a real thing, but you guys know when tampering period starts and you start seeing deals come through, those deals were already made even before the legal tampering period started, right? And so you got the pre-tampering period, the tampering period, and then you had the start of the league year. And so a lot of good talent is still on the board, but a lot of your top end talent is already gone. We understand the Baltimore Ravens are a team that kind of takes it a little slow. I wish they would have a little bit more of an aggressive approach to free agency. I wish they really would what's the word? Just move a little faster, right? I know we got off to a kind of a pretty fast pace in the beginning, and then it slowed down as expected. And so, whatever we do in free agency, the rest of free agency, hold on one sec. Sorry about that. Whatever we do in the rest of free agency will impact how we draft. Now, I know I've seen a lot of people have a conversation about BPA, best player available, but my motto with drafting in any kind of context is BPA at a position of need, right? So if the best player available on the board is offensive tackle, take him. If the best player available is edge, take him. If the best player available is cornerback, take him. If the best player is available is a safety, take him at a position of need. And so that's kind of my motto. So again, what we're going to do, we're going to take it week by week. And so my goal, my strategy for the mock draft that we will be doing is I'm actually going to trade back, hopefully picking up a third round pick. I want to maintain a first round pick, but I want to pick up a third so that we have three picks, excuse me, so that we have four picks in the first three rounds of the NFL draft. Because I think that this is the draft that's going to be super important for how long our Super Bowl window stays open. Because when you really, really think about it, um, we have some huge question marks coming up after the end of one season. I know I'm way, way ahead, but you got three tight ends, free agents. You have Odafe Owe, free agent. You have Derrick Henry, unless he gets an extension, is a free agent. You have Marlon Humphrey, who's probably at the end of his Baltimore Ravens career. So we have a lot of question marks. So we really need to kill it in this draft. That's why I'm a proponent of getting four quality picks in the first three rounds. And so that's what we're going to attempt to do. So what I'll do is I'll run the simulator, do a trade, then I will come in our next video, let you know what our picks are, and then we'll have at it. All right. So, with no further ado, man, let's get into the conversation for today. And let's see, where is my first slide? See if it's right here. Nope, it didn't come up. Give me one sec. Something's over here hiding. Let's see if it's right here. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's get this thing pulled up. There we go. So, our first topic of the day is, are the Ravens on top of the NFL? Now, I know that is a kind of a loaded question, right? And I got this question from an article that I kind of read over briefly. First thing this morning, it had just been put out probably about 15 to 20 minutes when I first read it. And then I end up running across it again. It had been reposted or maybe written in a different way, and it was about 4 or 5 hours later. And so I read through the article, and basically the article reads that the Baltimore Ravens, the experts of the NFL, believe that the Baltimore Ravens sit at the top. I guess you could call them the number one ranked team after the first week of free agency. And so when we really, really think about it, a question has to be, how did we get there? Right? Let's think about what we actually did in free agency in the um, pickups that matter. And so one of the first pickups was Ronnie Stanley. Of course, we got him in the pre-tampering period, but because he's our own free agent, doesn't really matter. And then we went ahead and we got Patrick Ricard. We brought back let's see, Talon Wallace. We brought back Ben Cleveland. We brought back excuse me, we brought in DeAndre Hopkins. And so maybe these moves alone were enough to kind of spring us forward, right? To kind of catapult us to the top of the free agency list. I'm not sure what you guys think about that, but let's kind of break that down, right? Let's kind of see, because we haven't done anything much defensively for me in order to really earn that notation of being the top team in the NFL. But when we really really look at it, you got to start with the most important position on the team, on any team per se, and that is the quarterback position. And when you look at what Lamar Jackson did in the 2024-25 season, He put up elite level numbers, elite level touchdowns, passing percentage, um, QBR, everything was at an elite level. And although he didn't win the MVP, that was Josh Allen. You could not walk away from last season thinking that Lamar Jackson was not the envy, excuse me, was not the best quarterback in the league, regardless of what anybody else is talking about. So you have to give us an A plus, that being the Ravens, a plus for the quarterback position. When you continue on and you want to think about what else we have going on, we have to think about the backfield. I think from top to bottom, we have one of the best backfields in the league, led by Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell. And so that's what, these analysts are kind of tallying up, right? They're tallying up, uh, you know, the collection of talent. So we got the best quarterback, one of the best backfields, if not the best backfield in the league as a collective. Then that kind of speaks highly of, okay, being near the top. But let's keep talking. When you look at the offensive line, right now, we're probably a mid-tier offensive line. I know we broke some records and things like that last year for, offensively. We were a top two or three offense. We had the number one run game in the league as a collective. And you got to give some credit to the offensive line. But nevertheless, we as a fan base, we look at the offensive line with a more critical lens. In truth, we look at it from a context that um, kind of what's not being done. I guess if we could say it that way. We look at Daniel Falele and we talk about how he was not very mobile. We look at Patrick McCarry and we talk about, him not being a long-term starter or whatever the situation may be. But nevertheless, our offensive line did put together a good performance for the most part, and so we're bringing back 4 or 5 of those players, those starters, and so that bodes well again for the Baltimore Ravens. So we got a plus, and a plus. Got to figure out what we're going to do with guards, but they're all pluses. Then when we look at the tight end room, we have the best collection of tight end talent in the league. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kolar, best collection of talent in the entire league. That doesn't mean we have the best tight end in the league, just the best collection. So again, here we are, another plus. So that's 4 pluses at those 4 position groups. Let's go outside to the wide receiver position. And when you look at the wide receiver position, okay, we may be a mid-tier group as it pertains to talent, maybe a top 15 group, right? And I won't knock that, you know what I'm saying? Out of 32 teams, we can be a top 15. That's not too bad, right? Zay, Bate, uh, I think an upgraded third at the third wide receiver and DeAndre Hopkins, bringing back Talon Wallace, and then you got Tez Walker, who still has a whole lot of untapped potential. So that's another plus, right? And so we're not in a situation offensively where we're desperate like we've been in many, many other seasons. And so I can kind of lean into why the experts, these article writers, are saying that the Baltimore Ravens should be the number one team in the NFL as of right now. Now we know that you can win all kind of stuff on paper, but we understand that games are won and lost on the actual field, right? But let's keep moving. When we jump to the defensive side of the ball, right, we did lose Michael Pierce. Um, Brent Urban is still a free agent, but we still have 3 solid starters along that defensive front, right? And then at the edge rush position, although we know we want a top end edge rusher, somebody who can get off the ball and collapse the pocket and be super disruptive, we don't have that right now. And it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get that in free agency. There's a few dudes left, but I'm not sure if we'll pick them up or not. So there's much to be desired with our edge rush, but we do have 2 double-digit sack guys in Odafe and Van Noy, and so that can be kind of plus minus, right? They are double-digit sack guys, but they're not super disruptive. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Linebacker, we have one high end linebacker, and then we have a question who runs beside him. And then the back end, we have a question at safety, and we have a question at one starting cornerback position. But as a whole, right, from the starting lineup last year, we're only have questions at one safety, one corner, and then um, the linebacker position because I think Travis Jones will do an adequate job filling in full time for Michael Pierce. So when you really, really think about it, maybe they got it right. Again, we've seen all kind of moves. We've seen all kind of teams make big time additions. We've seen the Washington Commanders pick up Debo, and then they made some other trades and added some pieces to their offensive puzzle and defensive puzzle. We've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers, who still have a big, big question at quarterback. We see them add DK Metcalf to their squad and some other really nice defensive pieces. And so, if they get a signal caller, at least somebody who can just put the ball in the right place, they're going to be a much improved team, even. um or in addition to making the playoffs last season. When you look at the Bengals, they've been able to retain both Chase and T. Higgins, and they had the number one passing offense in the league last season. And so they're going to be raring to go. And we'll talk about all of the AFC North stuff in a deeper conversation probably on Thursday. And then so when you look around, Buffalo picked up a couple of good defensive pieces. I think they still could retain or re-sign Amari Cooper as he was available earlier last night or late last night or earlier this morning. So, they could be back intact offensively. When you look at the Chiefs, they added a couple of pieces. Don't know how they're going to fit, don't know how they're going to produce, but it's still the Chiefs. They're still an adequate team. So you can't really sneeze at what they got going on over there in Kansas City. When you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they've lost some pieces, right? They lost Sweat, Williams, excuse me. They lost Darius Slay, or they let go of Darius Slay, so they lost some starters from last season. But you've seen them pick up Aguilera. You've seen them pick up I think his name is Josh Uso. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Somebody correct that if I need to. But nevertheless, they've just been retooling, and so they're going to do well in the draft. That's what they always do. So it's super super surprising that we surpass a lot of the teams who've gone further than us in the playoffs. But when you look at the Baltimore Ravens from top to bottom and what we were able to do in free agency, including the addition of the linebacker, um, it seems like we picked up somebody else. I just can't remember who it was. Oh, and then we got a better backup at quarterback. I could see why the Baltimore Ravens sit at the top. But that takes us to topic number two. Topic number two is, what is the Baltimore Ravens stumbling block, right? See, because we're always near the top, in truth. Uh-oh, get it off the screen. We're always near the top, right? Every off season, we kind of sit near the top. And a lot of that is because of Lamar Jackson and his dynamic ability to ball, right? To make plays when there is no play, to make the line look better, to make receivers look better, to make the running backs look better. But so although we start high, as a projection, we end up validating that in the season. We've had two seasons where we've won, 12 plus games, made the playoffs, AFC championship, and then the divisional round. But the question is, what's our stumbling block when we get into the I don't know why my chat's not coming up. When we get into the playoffs, right? When we get into tough matchups, what happens to us? What happens to the Baltimore Ravens that we see in the regular season? What happens to that high ranking Baltimore Ravens team that starts the season projected to go far, right? And we're rated number one right now, and we haven't even had a draft, right? We haven't even added any major pieces to the defense. And so that says that people expect high things of us. And as Ravens fans, what do we expect? High things also. High achievements, high accomplishments, also. But nevertheless, man, when we get into those playoffs, we stumble. And a lot of times we're stumbling the same way. We have turnovers, sometimes we have inefficient play calling, we have a lack of execution, and we have a lack of plays being made, right? And so I think that what ends up happening, I think what our major stumbling block has been. Now, some of you ain't gonna like what I'm finna say, but I think what our major stumbling block has been was this. Okay. I think throughout the regular season, we lean on and depend on Lamar Jackson too much. You see, Lamar Jackson is such a talent, right? And this is not saying we don't have a good team all around, but I think this is what we see, right? We lean on Lamar Jackson so much that it's easy to have letdowns, right? Well, if the offensive line has been trash for the first half, well, Lamar Jackson has made them look better. So they come out in the second half and they may look like trash again. Why? They haven't been challenged to pick up the play, right? Because you got your quarterback running around extending plays and then throwing touchdowns, right? When the run game isn't going, then Lamar Jackson breaks off a run 20 yards, and that energizes the run game. And so I think that's what's happening, that it's easy to kind of manipulate different things throughout the course of a game, right? But what happens in the playoffs, there's no more manipulation. See, because now you're good on good, you're great on great when you get into the playoffs, right? You as an offensive all pro, you're facing who? Defensive all pros. You're facing pro bowlers, you're facing top end edge rushers, things like that. So now leaning on one guy is the greatest mistake, right? It's I think that's what we've seen in the last couple of seasons. If we could jump back, we won't super analyze it or anything like that. But if we could jump back to the AFC Championship, one of the major questions, one of the major questions from that game was why didn't Lamar Jackson run more? Now, in agreement, there was some running lanes. There was some opportunities for Lamar Jackson to run. So why didn't he run? Right? Some people, kind of speculate that maybe he was trying to prove he could be a passer or whatever. I don't think that's what it was. I just think that you start to highlight and emphasize things that have worked all regular season, and then now you're in the playoffs and they may not look like they're working, right? Um, and so I think that um, you see some letdowns, right? I think the other thing that we see is a stumbling block is that when you lean on one player such as Lamar Jackson so much, right? He is quote unquote the playmaker, but sometimes he just needs to be the guy who delivers the ball, the guy who sets up the play, and the other guys need to complete the play. Let me give you a prime example. Okay. On the one drive where Zay catches the ball inside the 10-yard line, he gets up and he's taunting, right? That moves us back to outside the 20. You follow what I'm saying? Now that we're outside the 20, now we have further to go to score. But what does that play look like if Zay completes the play? He completes the catch, but the play's not over till you get your behind back to the huddle. If he gets up off the ground and he just goes back to the huddle, right? Now we get four cracks at scoring inside the 10-yard line. I take my chances with that. But when you have to go back and run some more plays outside of the 20, right? You have to literally cover the same ground you just covered. Now, so when Lamar Jackson delivers the ball again to Zay, I'm pretty sure it's on the same series of drives. He catches the ball, he's on the goal line, and bam, L'Jarius Sneed knocks the ball out. Now, there's two times Lamar Jackson has put the Baltimore Ravens inside the 10, and the play is not complete. The playmaker makes the play, but you need the guys to complete the play. And and I know he threw a late interception to Isaiah Likely, but if that play is complete, We don't need a touchdown at the end of the game to likely. We can just get into position and kick the field goal and walk off with a win. Nevertheless, Lamar Jackson makes the plays. We need guys who can complete the play. I think we have those guys. I think with more experience, more leadership, more focus, that can happen, right? And I think another example is okay, Lamar Jackson did have two turnovers. He absolutely did. But one of those turnovers was a bad snap by the center. See, we just need guys to complete plays. The center's play is complete as it pertains to the snap if it's delivered to the QB, right? But when it's not delivered to the QB, it puts everything else in jeopardy. And that's what happened on that play. Okay. Lamar Jackson balls out. The team is getting, getting building momentum. He delivers the ball. Watch this. The playmaker delivers the ball to Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews does not complete the play. Okay. We overcome that. Lamar Jackson playmaker delivers the strike to Isaiah Likely touchdown. We're now going for two. The playmaker makes the play to Mark Andrews, right read, right timing, and the ball is put on the ground again. And I think that's our stumbling block. We play all season with dudes being able to complete plays. But when we get into those playoffs, in two separate playoffs, there's examples where the play is not being made. That takes us to our last conversation. We won't be in this live long. Our last conversation is what? So, what do the Baltimore Ravens need? And so you guys put that in the comment section. I don't, for whatever the reason, my chat is not coming up in on my side of things, but I promise I will address everybody's commentary. But you guys chop it up with one another. That's super cool. But so what do we need, guys? What do we need? I think the Baltimore Ravens need two things. I think the Baltimore Ravens need a calming presence. Calming, a calming presence. Somebody who can be on the team, who is able to bring the team down to just a simmer, right? The Baltimore Ravens sometimes they're either um they're either just heating up, like if you're cooking, if you're getting ready to fry something, the grease is just heating up, or we are boiling hot. Sometimes we need to play at a simmer where we're not too high and we're not too low. We're just right. Because sometimes we can see in different games throughout a season where we are too cold, right? It takes us two or three drives to get into gear, right? And against good teams, we can't stumble out of the starting gate where we go two or three drives and we're not putting any points on the board because that excuse me, that prevents opportunity to get into a rhythm. And when we can't get into a rhythm early, sometimes that thing lasts a whole first quarter. And so, as the teams in our division have ramped up their talent, there's not going to be many opportunities where we can just be ho hum, right? We can't just be in a situation where we're just trying to find ourselves. We are at this point, we are we are too talented. We are too deep offensively in a lot of aspects to where we should be struggling to get things going. It just should not be that way. And so, whether it's play calling that to help people, get motivated, get in gear, or whether it's just having that calming presence that kind of can raise the temperature, not too high, not too low. Because sometimes you can see Lamar Jackson be too high. You can see a start of a game, especially if it's a big game where he's too amped up, and you can see a couple of throws in the beginning of a game where they're too high, they're too wide. But then when he settles in, he's not able to be stopped. But so we kind of need that guy who can help us check temperature, right? And I think some of the guys that we talked about in the last live stream, some of those vets, some of those guys who have championship experience, some of those guys who just know the game forwards and backwards, who can have some tricks to the trade, so to speak. I think that's what we need. We need some of those guys who can help us regulate temperature, right? Because I think that's part of the reason why you see a lack of playmaking or a lack of play completion, right? You don't have that guy who can settle down the more inexperienced guys, right? When you look at the offense, right? Name the guy, right, who really just says, I'm a leader, not vocally, but by what he does, by his behavior, by his activity, by how he moves amongst the team, about how he navigates the sidelines. You don't really see that. And the unfortunate part, guys, is because we don't have a head coach who can really raise the temperature of the team. you know, it's going to take a player or two to be able to do that. Now, maybe Lamar Jackson steps into that role next year. You've seen him elevate his leadership this past season, and I believe he could take it to another level. But Lamar Jackson may take us all the way to a boil, right? To the temperature that you're frying stuff with. I don't know if he has that ability to just work at a simmer. So I think we need to add a couple of pieces who can do that. I think DeAndre Hopkins for the wide receiver room. I think he could be that. Right? He's a wily veteran now, 33 years old. He's done everything there is to do. I think he is the league leader in yards right now as far as active players. And so he's done it all, seen it all, and so now he's in a position where he wants to win. He just was in the AFC Championship. He just was in a Super Bowl. And so now I think he can bring some of that experience to the Baltimore Ravens offensively to help us kind of work or cook at that simmer. Defensively, I don't think we have that guy. Maybe Calvin Noy, right? Um, but I think we need somebody on that back end who can help us cook at a simmer, right? Where we're not too high, we're not too low. I think that's also the reason why we don't really turn the ball over, right? I think there was about four big plays this past season. Two of them by Marlon Humphrey, where the game was kind of tight. He had game-changing interceptions, and then the other two was by Ardarius Washington. Other than that, man, those were the only game-changing turnovers or plays made where we actually turned the game around defensively. And I know we've been looking for a ball hawk at safety. That guy's not available right now in free agency unless you still think Justin Simmons has that ability, but he doesn't have any championship experience. And so I think maybe a guy like a Stephon Gilmore, which we talked about the other day, he's still available. Last I checked, I think he would be a great addition to that secondary, especially a young secondary. Cal Hamilton is a 4-year player now going into this next season, but he's still young. Darius Washington is still a young player. Nate Wiggins absolutely is still, a super young player. Whoever we draft is going to be young. And so having a veteran who's done it all, seen it all, I think could bring some of that championship DNA and championship commentary to what we're trying to do. And so I think that's one thing that we're missing. I think that's one thing that we need is that some that those two or three players who can help us cook at a simmer, not at the highest level sometimes, not at the lowest level, but at that simmer where we're consistent and we're steady so that we don't have highs and lows. The Baltimore Ravens are the type of team who can absolutely um, be blazing hot for several weeks in a row. But I think it's in those big matchups where uh, we need that consistency. In big matchups, we've seen it against the Steelers, we've seen it against the Eagles, we've seen it against the Bengals, the Browns, where we just needed to stay even keel, and there was times that we just didn't. And I think the last thing that we need is, as and it kind of references one of the other topics, we need playmakers, right? And what I mean is defensively. See, on offense, we have the playmaker at quarterback. We just need guys to complete the play. Defensively, we need playmakers. We need guys who can knock the ball out. We need guys who can take the ball away. You see, there's too many times where we can watch a game and a play not be made, right? An interception caroms off the defender's hands and falls to the ground. Next thing you know, they complete in a 3rd and 12, right? There's too many times where we get a sack early on first down, and then it's 2nd and 15, and they pick up they pick up the first down. Too many times where there is an opportunity to get off the field on third down, and because we don't have a playmaker, whether it's at edge, whether it's in the blitzing context, or whether it's on the back end where somebody's taking the ball away, or we have more people right place, right time who can do that. I think that one of the culprits that kind of didn't allow us to make as many plays this past season, and I'm not throwing shade at him or nothing, because I thought that not this past season, but 2 seasons ago, actually, I thought Brandon Stevens played well enough to get a contract extension. And I guess it paid dividends that they waited to give him a new deal, right? And so I think that maybe somebody who can be more have a more of a ball hawk skill set, or maybe that happens at safety. Maybe a ball hawk at safety. Darius Washer is not really a ball hawk. He's good in coverage. He can make big hits, all those kind of things, especially for a guy his size. But in truth, he is not a ball hawk. And so I think that's the component we need to add to this defense, is a ball hawk and or an opportunistic player who can play in that front seven, whether it's a partner for Roquan or whether it's an edge rusher who can knock the ball out, who can collapse the pocket, make the quarterback uncomfortable, and get some strip sacks and things of that nature. I think those are the components, man, that keep tripping us up in the playoffs. Let's close out right here. When we think about the game against the Buffalo Bills, right? When you think about that game, one of the major problems in that game was that we couldn't get stops, especially early on. When Buffalo needed a first down, guess what? They got a first down, whether it was running or whether it was throwing. When it was second and seven, right? And we just needed to get a stop on third, excuse me, yeah, we need to get a stop on third down. We didn't do that. And it really looked like James Cook was dominating, but when you pull his stats, I don't think he had even 100 yards, but his runs were so impactful that it made you feel like we were being dominated. And so Josh Allen didn't really have to do a whole lot, but what? Cook at a simmer. That's what you saw from Josh Allen this season. He was able to just cook at a simmer. Typically, he either had to play super high, right? He had to play on boil. He had to play on the highest temperature because he had to set the table for everybody, but he also had to make the plays. But what you see in this past season, what he took a step back and he put the ball where it needed to be, trusted the offensive line, trusted the running backs, and things worked out at least up until the AFC Championship. Sometimes that's what you saw from the Kansas City Chiefs this past season. They wasn't really good offensively. They won a lot of close games. There was a lot of skepticism to around Patrick Mahomes. Had he lost a step? Was he injured? All this kind of skepticism. But the fact of the matter is, because he allowed the rest of the team to make plays for him, he didn't always have to be great. And I think that is the major culprit for the Ravens when we get into the playoffs. Lamar Jackson has been in a position where he always had to be great. And when he wasn't, we weren't. You see what I'm saying? Um, so a turnover or two is exponentially highlighted when other people don't make plays. No matter what the divisional round game looked like, right? If Lamar Jackson wasn't in position where he had to make all the plays, we win that game and we win it easy, including the interceptions. But it is what it is, man. So I am going to jump off of here, man. I appreciate you guys. Again, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't just yet, and appreciate you guys for checking in. I will make sure I get the chat fixed on my end. I look forward to checking out you guys in the comment section. Let me know what you guys want me to know. I'm your guy Boulanger, and we're out.